Hey, I'm Jeff here at Pyramind. Welcome to another episode of Producing Out Loud. Today I'm joined with Chris Gear from here at Pyramind, head of our mentorship network.
Hey, everyone.
What's up, buddy? And Stoni Music from New York City. Thanks for joining us, Stoni.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
How you been?
Pretty good. Actually, really good. The weather's great here in New York.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks again. It's always nice to see your face. You're one of our sort of star mentors right now. You're up to big things. All this great feedback from the people you've been working with. So just thanks, man. You're killing it. So
changing lives.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today we're talking about the kind of the building blocks of production and some of the basics. And we're really going to vamp on this whole concept of less is more. And I think that so many people can get bogged down in the weight of all the complexity and all of the choices that you have to make through the production process. And we really thought today would kind of strip it back a little bit and talk about this concept of less is more. So Stoni, why don't you give some opening thoughts around that?
I mean, I just find, with the mentorship program, a lot of people, a lot of mentees, have an idea of some of the things that they want to get out of being a part of the, mentorship program and what they're looking from us, from mentors. And I just noticed a lot of producers come in with these preconceived notions from everything that they've seen either on the internet, either on YouTube or, other friends and producers that they've had interactions with. And what can happen is their ideas become really kind of like mangled up with all these different concepts of, well, I need to have Pro Tools and I need to have Ableton and I need to have this with that and that and that. And so now you have someone who's never even used a DAW, who's never used a drum machine, and they've got a DAW, they've got a drum machine, they've got all these different tools that take years to master. And then, they sign up with me and then they're just like, I have a week. Can you just make me know everything in 1 week? And I'm just like, well, why are you doing it? What are you doing it for? And the first answer I get is usually, well, a friend of mine has battery and another friend of mine has machine and another friend of mine has Ableton. And I think today we should talk about just, really stripping down what it means to have all these tools, what's the difference between hardware and software, why you're doing production, finding your own voice and all those different things. So less is more. We're gonna go deep into like so many different concepts. But as a mentor, the one message that I've noticed with all the people that sign up is there's just too much stuff on their plate, too fast. Yeah.
So kind of slow your roll a little bit, especially when you're shopping, and try to make the most out of what you've already got sitting on your computer or on your desk, right? Before
Absolutely.
Going and buying the next new shiny thing, which we're all guilty of to a certain degree. There's
we
whole
love toys.
Gear and toys, but at the same time, getting overloaded with choices around even where to start, which DAW to use as a young producer. Like you don't need that. You don't need those headaches yet, right? Like learn something and really dig in deep. So that's good words of counsel. What about from your side, Chris?
Oh man, asking me to talk about less is more is like opening up Pandora's box. I've spent like the last better part of a decade focusing on just the concept of less is more. And if you put say 100 buttons in front of you when you're producing something, like the worst thing you could do is try to press all 100 buttons, right? I think that kind of sums up everything pretty nicely. I think that the importance of just understanding your tools and what your intention is kind of provides a pathway not only to productivity and success, but also access to deeper knowledge and efficiency and proficiency. I think that just kind of zeroing in on one thing at a time is profoundly important. There's this phrase that I toss around all the time in my classes: you can be the master of one or a slave to many. And once you become the master of one, you can become the master of another one. It's not that you can't be a master of many things, but you just kind of have to focus and become a master of one thing at a time, especially in the beginning. Once you have your legs under you, so to speak, in the industry, you kind of have a perspective of how you learn and how you produce, and you can kind of carry that forward and gain some momentum over time. But less is more is kind of the bottom line for me in just about everything.
Well, I feel like it should be the music dictating that you've pushed to the limit of a certain tool and now you need something else, as opposed to someone told me I need more things and that's going to help me. Right? It's along the same concept. If you've reached the limit of what you can do within a certain tool set, then of course, maybe it's time to look beyond that. But until then, like work what you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for a lot of producers, I mean, the first thing that I usually start off with saying is, because the market is so saturated now, we've got so many options now that you don't know whether you want hardware, you don't know whether you want software. And the first thing I'll tell them is just what speaks to you the most, what stands out, what jumps out, what do you turn on that says, wow, I kind of understand this thing like right off the bat. You know what I mean? Like, I have this piece of hardware in front of me and I know how to actually make things turn on, make the lights turn on, and it turns on my inspiration. You know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of people have forgotten that it comes from inspiration first. Like, you get inspired, you dig into what's making you have fun. Like, you got to have fun with this stuff, and then find the tool that makes you have the most fun, and then dig into that, master that, have fun with it because you're enjoying it already. So then now, like, make it your everything. And then, like you said, Jeff, add on after that and just kind of keep going with that concept. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. I mean, you kind of touched on some of our next topics, which is this notion of fun. And you touched on this notion of like someone setting an intention when you walk in the studio or when you even start your day around, why am I on the planet from a big picture? Why am I in the studio from a more focused picture? And like, what is this piece of music what am I trying to do?
Yeah.
From a certain extent. And it's not like you have to figure it all out before you hit record, but at the same time, like having some notion of my voice as an artist or my voice as a producer is so helpful, as opposed to, here we go, kick drums. Let's cycle through kick drums because that's what I'm supposed to do to start a track. Like that's what the YouTube told me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like having fun. Like, I mean, I've talked about that on previous episodes, this whole notion of finding a new way to interact with music and instruments and to find a new voice is so motivating and so fulfilling. And if you forget the fact that like it's supposed to kind of be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's a return to normalcy is really what it is, because we tend to get bogged down in all of the, workflows and order of operations and versions of technology and updates and features, and really what it's about is an idea, and kind of bringing yourself back down to earth. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to create. You're absolutely correct. But at the same time, there is kind of the micro macro mindset that you need to balance, right? We work in these non-linear workflows these days, which means it's very easy to be distracted by bright and shiny things. And you can't just say, hey, we always put compression on drums, or we always put reverb on vocals, or whatever. It's kind of this conversation that we have in an ongoing fashion, right, about what is our intention with anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to know everything from the very, very beginning. It just means that you need to know what you're about to do before you do it at any one time in the process, I think.
And then there's also like, there are the fundamentals, there are the fundamental things about production that you're going to apply to everything and anything that you're using. You know what I mean? And I like to, when I'm talking to someone and getting them started, just kind of focus on the basics, understanding if you have a DAW, drum machine, whatever it is you're using, understand how to get the sound into whatever software, hardware, understanding your preferences, just like the real basic stuff before you even start composing. How does this thing work? How does it flow? How does it actually come together to put a piece of work together? You know what I'm saying? And then start adding on. You know what I mean? It's like, I just feel like a lot of people are overthinking this thing.
Absolutely. And you kind of
overthinking it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, it's okay.
I think what you're hitting on here is so important, because you're allowing technology to get out of the way of your creative processes. Once you understand how to actually make it function in the ways that you need it to, you can forget about it, kind of set it and forget it mindset. And once you have something set up, most of the time with software nowadays, you just save it as a template or whatever, and then you never really have to go through that process again. But understanding how you got there obviously is pretty important to make it work.
But then it comes back to intention, right? So you say you want to produce. I mean, and we have like these words that we throw around. I'm a producer, I'm a technology expert, I'm an engineer, I'm a sound designer, and everybody's like taking these words and putting them all in this one basket. And it doesn't go in one basket, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have guys who make beats and they're beat makers and they're like, well, I'm a sound designer. And I'm just like, are you a sound designer? Do you understand what sound design is? And then how are you approaching your production? So I think the approach and understanding what these titles are will help people better, and just like kind of filter them out. Like, give yourself one title, tackle that title, focus on that. If you're going to do sound design, understand sound design, understand synthesis, understand all the things that come with sound design. That's completely separate from being a producer. We do some sound designing things when we're producing records, but then there is the sound designer. There is the recording engineer who goes in and records, and he doesn't just use software. He can actually go in and record a band and mic a drum set and do all the things that an engineer actually does. And then you have producers. Some producers use gear, some producers don't. What kind of producer do you want to be? Focus and study on what you actually want to do. I sit with people and they're like, yeah, I just want to produce. Well, what do you want to produce? Do you want to produce television shows? Do you want to produce hip hop? Do you want to produce EDM? And there are certain softwares that work great for certain genres, and some of the stuff can do all of it. You know what I mean? But the intention is everything. And we have to like kind of less is more, bring it down. I mean, if I meet someone, they're like, yeah, I'm a producer and I'm an engineer and I'm a sound designer and I edit film. I'm just like, really?
So you don't need anyone.
You don't need me, right? But I just think that we are, like you said, it's oversaturated. And I think the best solution is to just kind of narrow it down.
Yeah.
Pick one and master it. Like, and I'm not saying don't dig into any of the other things. I mean, by default, we're going to fall into some sound design, sometime in our journey in producing. You're going to go in and you're going to learn synthesis and you're going to find all these cool things. But, getting like caught up in the titles and caught up in getting stuck in these different things, you kind of lose focus. And if you were producing and then you jump into sound designing, you forgot what you did here. And I just think it takes a lot of time. It takes, I told one guy, he wanted to learn machine. I said, well, it's going to take you a good year to really master it. It takes years, it takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes extreme focus on that one thing. And then those things that you focused on, you can now apply them to everything else. And it becomes easier when you're trying to learn another new thing, because now you're coming in with some kind of information already that you can apply to the new thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then you're making your own building blocks.
Yeah.
That you can rely on.
Yeah. One thing that I'm picking up on here is, the importance of also just being vulnerable, and, admitting that, not necessarily that you just need help, but that you want help, that you're going to like seek answers, whether it be, from a manual or a mentor is up to you, but, having the open mind of, hey, this is what I actually need to learn, to get to this next step. So it sounds like really what we're touching on here is the importance of a few things, because we need to know, what we want to do and what our tools are capable of. And we need to know how to do all of these things, that you're touching on here, Stoni.
And to piggyback off of what you're saying, like even myself, I might be working on a project or something and think that I need certain things. And then, Chris and I will have a conversation and he's like, you actually don't need that. You need to just do what you need to do what you've just been doing and keep doing that thing. So sometimes, to me, I think that's the beauty of having a mentor.
Yeah.
That mentor is going to say to you, well, actually, you don't need all those things, and why are you doing this? And it kind of refocuses your your goals and what you want to do, and you have the passion, you know what the end goal is, but getting to that end goal is the issue, you know, and without having so much clutter in front of you, you know, and like you said, being vulnerable, being able to say, hey, I don't know this one thing,
right?
You know, do I need to know this? And how much of it do I need to know? And how long do I need to focus on this? And maybe you might want to outsource and get someone else to come in and help you out in building these relationships.
Yeah.
That will take you to another level. Some things you definitely need to know. And then some things you don't need to know everything. That's where the relationships come into
which
play.
dovetails right into the last bit we want to talk about, which is communication, right? And I think that knowing yourself and knowing your own skill set is super important, and knowing when to reach out and partner with somebody, whether it's you know, in the studio or from a business standpoint, building a team around yourself as an artist versus, you know, doing things in the studio with other collaborators, and how important that is. That coupled with the one thing that you said that struck a chord with me is, like, a lot of times people know what they know. Well, I guess everyone knows what they know. And then they kind of know what they don't know. But then there's this whole other world of what they don't even know that they don't know yet. Right. And I feel like that's where some of this mentorship can really help so much, because there's this whole kind of, you know, like dark web world out there of the things that you don't really know that you don't even know that might be completely instrumental in getting you to that finish line of whatever the project is, right?
You're basically guaranteed that.
Yeah, almost always. And so that's so nice to have that new set of eyes, whether that's a collaborator, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a student sometimes can open those free, right? And it's this nice two-way street. But so yeah, communication and this whole notion of, like, the I don't know what I don't know, and what of that is helpful to me as a producer or as an artist.
Yeah, I think, you know, part of it is honesty, being honest with yourself about what you're capable of, or what you're wanting to do, or what you're actually hearing versus what you want to hear. You know, I think we all kind of fool ourselves into believing some things sometimes, right? We're all guilty of it. I think Stoni hit on something really great just a second ago when she was talking about, you know, we'll get on a call together and she'll be running through a bunch of new ideas, and I'll be like, hey, Stoni, what if you just keep doing what you're already doing? Because it's already great. So, you know, just keeping ourselves grounded.
Yeah.
And having those touch points with other humans, you know, that are creative and analytical, helps a lot. But being able to communicate what you actually want, not just from others, but from yourself, I think is really important, and oftentimes overlooked, because whether we want to admit it to each other in public or not, we're always talking to ourselves. We're constantly rattling in our own brains, just nonstop. And I can't count how many times, you know, and I do it myself, where you're in the middle of production and you're just like, okay, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to load this up. I'm going to start clicking on this. And you didn't even have the conversation with yourself of, like, what's next? Or what does this actually need? You're just grabbing something. Right. And that's where things kind of start to fall apart. And that's where communication with others, I think, is really, really, you know, just priceless.
Now here's the other thing to piggyback off of that. There's also the, like, I had one guy, he was just like, I heard so-and-so's record and I want my snare to sound like his snare. And I was just
it's always the snare.
But you're not him, and you don't have the same room he has. You don't have the same monitors he have. Do you even understand where he was when he created this snare? Do you know what his mindset was that day? What kind of music are you trying to make? You know, like, why do you want your stuff to sound like his stuff? And why is it not okay to love what you're doing?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, we have to start falling in love with our own sounds, our own ears. And it's okay to do something completely different.
Here.
I don't think it's okay to always do what the norm is. You know what I'm saying? Like, these tools are here so you can mess things up.
Yeah. And
then make them sound good and then mess them up. It's okay to not have an amazing track all the time.
Yeah. I think
like, how are you learning if you're not making mistakes? You have to make these mistakes. You have to have a real crappy snare to understand, okay, I'm going to turn this into something great.
That's right. That's right.
And then when you do it yourself, or you sit with a mentor and you work through that process, when you finally get there, it's so much more rewarding. I'm telling you, it just feels amazing when you get that moment and you're just like, wow, why wasn't I just doing this myself? Why wasn't I just, focused in on this? Because the first time you get an issue or problem, you're running to YouTube or you're running to an outsource instead of sitting with what you have already and finding the solution.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on a couple things you just said there. One is having your own voice and vision, and it's not only important, but it's a must. Like if all you ever do is try to sound like other people or replicate or emulate or copy things, you're only ever going to learn so much, and you're never really going to truly innovate. And I think that that's what we need when we're trying to get our own voice out there and our own stories and ideas out there, is to find the way to do that. And then what was the other thing that you just mentioned? Oh,
being yourself. I mean, just like
getting stuck and having to find your way
honing
through.
in on that craft. You know.
So the other thing is the importance of falling down, is the importance of making mistakes. If you can't fail, you can't truly succeed. Or if you do somehow stumble into success, you can't replicate it. You can't go forward and do it again because you don't understand how to avoid the things you need to avoid to actually succeed consistently. So I think that part of branching off and seeking out and finding your own voice and your own vision is failing and learning what your own voice and vision actually is along the way. I don't think that it's something that you just wake up one morning and say, oh, I've got it. It's a golden idea. It's brilliant. And I'm going to be a star. It's a long process. It's a really long process of trying to figure out what you're actually capable of, where you're falling or slipping, finding ways to work around those things and improve. And man, you ask any artist that's had any kind of success, and they're always going to come back to this idea of, man, there were a lot of mistakes. There's a lot on the cutting room floor. Like there's a little bit on the highlight reel, and then there's a lot on the cutting room floor.
But I think, and I also think like a lot of those mistakes, I know for me, for sure, like a lot of the mistakes and things that I stumbled on, if I had a mentor, if I had someone like me, guiding me or giving me the information
today, you
early up
to past you, future
right.
you was mentoring past you.
Right.
Is that how that works? Something like that, right?
And it's there's so many things I was like, well, why didn't anyone just tell me that? Like, what's the deal? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, so you showed me this particular thing. I'm like, okay, I'm never going to do it like you did it, and for me, that's why I share, and then there's a value in that sharing. There's a value in that sharing, and it's your time, it's your dedication, and you have to be dedicated to this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I get mentees, and I'm just like, guys, we could sit here for months and weeks, and you could book me for 3-4 days a week. You have to actually get up and do the work. You have to run those miles. You have to actually do the workout on your own. I can guide you, I can tell you, but you have to physically actually turn this thing on, touch it, and make it happen. You know what I mean? And sharing is everything, because half the time I'm sharing, I then get my own aha moments and go, oh, wow, I didn't even think I knew that well. And so now I'm teaching, I'm reintroducing myself to what I knew already and keeping it going, like sharpening your sword as you're sharing, as you're giving, Oh,
yeah.
I like that. For me, this just came up, is the ability to take criticism that's constructive without taking it personally, right? Because you put so much into your art and your music and your creativity, and you're like, especially for a new artist or even for established artists, like putting it out there to people is sometimes really nerve-wracking. Now, that's like putting it out to the general public, but well before it ever gets to that point, you've got your circle of peers, other producers, mentors, Matt Donner, who can put a set of ears on something and be like, oh, well, here's this, and this that you should really think about. And like, it's amazing when you have somebody with access to someone like that. And then as an artist, it's tough to not take that stuff personally at first. And if you can get over that hurdle of like, we're all just trying to make this a little bit better, and maybe this guy that's been doing this thing for so very long might be onto something. I should try the few of these ideas.
Right.
Holy crap, he's right. You know what I mean? Like being able to do that, it takes some positive self-talk, and it takes some being honest with yourself, but also it takes a little bit of humility around, like, none of us know all this stuff,
absolutely.
right?
Oh,
And his opinion's one thing and my opinion's one thing. You know, we sat in Matt, I hate to keep name checking him, but we sat in Matt's production arranging class yesterday a little bit. And man, just watching his brain work in front of a class on an arrangement technique, it's just so cool to watch. And watching kids' eyes open around, like, when they get it, when they get one of these little concepts and one of these little tricks. And then it's like, okay, I can put that in my toolkit, and I'm not going to do it every single time, but man, now I have this sword to pull out and sharpen when I need it, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's fun to just learn along the way.
Yeah, it's really all I want. It's really all I want. When I share stuff with my collaborators and my peers, I guess, in the industry, is I want something legit. I want something meaty as a response. I don't want, that's awesome, or man, that's deep, or wow, man, that's just, I want something like, so why so much high end? Right. Like, what are you thinking there? Like, what if someone turns up the volume? Have you considered that? Like, that's great that it sounds so great at C3, but what does it sound like at F-1? Like, where are we with our overall sound? Because I produce a lot of sound. I don't really even talk about producing music anymore these days. I guess going back to what Stoni was saying, is like, know what you do. I've been focused on just sound for so long now that I crave the really constructive, meaty feedback from people. I really don't like it when people are like, "Oh, that's a great sound." It's like, that's awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't have spent an hour on it if I didn't think that it had greatness in it. I just want to know, how can it be better? Like, you would use this sound. How would you use it? What don't you like about it? I really wish people had more honest and constructive conversations about music too, in general.
I believe that with vulnerability, it allows you to grow, because when you're vulnerable, if I have a conversation with Jeff or with Chris and I say, "Hey guys, I'm really trying to get this, this hi-hat to cut through, or I'm trying to get this kick to punch through," I have to be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I suck at doing this," or "I'm great at doing this," or whatever. I'm just saying, "Hey guys, what are some of the things you do to get your stuff to sound better?" If I'm not vulnerable and I don't share that, you won't be able to give that information to me, because you don't know that I need it. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be willing to be vulnerable, and you have to be willing to listen and hear and process what someone is showing you and telling you, and how it applies to what you're doing. Some stuff will apply, some stuff won't.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you actually just kind of sparked this thought in my head about, we're talking about the importance of communication with yourself and with others. One of the biggest things here is listening, right? Like, I think that so many people are caught up in waiting for their turn to speak, and they're thinking about what they're about to say while they're watching the other person's lips move. Right. And they're not actually hearing what's being said. And that's so off-putting. It's so dismissive and disrespectful and like condescending and alienating. Like, we could go on and on and on with all the negative terms that are associated with not being a good listener. But not being vulnerable can be just as off-putting or just as dismissive, right? Because what's worse than asking someone their opinion and then really not caring what the answer is? Or acting like you don't need the input when you're sitting in the same space as someone who has all the answers for you.
Oh my God. And I'm telling you, Chris, I cannot tell you how many times. And again, that vulnerability, we could call it vulnerability. We call it fear. We can call it not wanting to be exposed and all these things.
Right.
But I've been in places where, I've done workshops all over the place, and I'd be in a room. I think I was in a workshop. It had to be like 300 people in there, and I say, "Hey guys, you have any questions? I'm here right now. I'm not going to be here. I'm not accessible that way. So I'll probably be back here in another year. But you have me right now, physically in front of you. Ask me the questions. Pick my brain. That's what I'm here to do." No one said anything. Maybe 2 people raised their hands out of 300.
That's terrible.
And then I got a tweet that night, and the tweet said, hey, you were really great today. Can I ask you a question?
Classic.
And I was just like, and so my response, and I usually don't respond to something like that, but I responded and said, well, why didn't you ask me when I was in front of you? Well, I felt weird. And I'm just like, those feelings hold you back. They hold you back because you could have not only asked me the question, we might have been able to go hang out and have lunch, or we might have been able to like hook up and work on music together. I might have dug you enough and you would have dug me, and we could have actually made some awesome music together. A whole opportunity was just missed only because you were afraid to just be vulnerable and say, hey, what's up, Stoni?
Yeah, that's everything.
You know,
that's everything.
It is.
You got to put yourself
totally
out there.
Everything. Just, just speak. People are listening. People want to hear what you have to say also.
Speaking of, Stoni, we should be asking the people out there what they want to hear about from you. Like what kind of tutorials, what kind of pro tips and tricks. And, I get requests all day long in the classroom. I would love to hear what people want to hear from you.
Okay. Comment section.
Yeah.
Let's do it like that.
Right down there.
Where you do all the thumbs up stuff down there.
Yeah. We read those. We respond.
Yeah. So let us know what you want to see. From us in general, Pyramind's always open to that. But since we've got you here, Stoni, like I agree. And I think that we get a lot of good feedback from people that are in sessions with you. But I'd love to hear what the broader public wants to hear out of your studio and out of your videos.
And I'd like to know what they expect from booking a session with me. What do they expect? What are they looking for? And, what does that mean to be in a session with Stoni? I'm here. Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm going to book with you tonight.
I'd love to answer those questions.
I'm going to be a rock star by tomorrow. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this.
I just want to learn how to make that one snare, and then I'll be good. Right.
And to know where the easy button is. Yeah. I mean, once I know where the easy button is, I think I'm good.
You guys
I'll probably be good from there.
So you can also hit us at producingoutloud@pyramind.com is another great way to kind of chat about any of the stuff that we cover here on this podcast. We are getting set up as an Apple podcast too here shortly. So by the time this one's live, we should be up on Apple too. So It's not just here on YouTube. Nice. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Stoni, I don't know if we have any kind of last thoughts on this. Or what does Springer say? Final thoughts?
Oh my!
Yeah, let's take it to Springer.
This is where we start just throwing chairs.
This is where we throw chairs. We get a baby mama test or something. Isn't that how this all works? I've always wanted to say baby mama on a podcast. There, I just said it. Awesome. Anyways,
Speaking of cutting room floor,
my brain just goes and goes and goes. Yeah. So thanks for joining us. This is always good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully you guys got a little something out of this chat. I know it's always good for me to explore some of these concepts, and this whole less is more, I think, is probably a good one to keep to a short podcast, right? And not go an hour long on the less is more concept. That would probably be
drink our own Kool-Aid.
Be fitting. Yeah, exactly. So any final thoughts that you want to give them out there, Stoni?
I mean, the final thought I have about less is more is just find things that relate to you. Find one thing that relates to you. Stick to that one thing. Dedicate yourself to it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to a friend or to reach out to people and say, hey, I need help. You know what I mean? And don't be afraid to challenge yourself and try something completely different that someone else didn't do. And just fall in love with your own voice, believe in yourself and give yourself a chance to become better.
I love that.
That's some good stuff right there.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. I think we'll probably sign off then. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. I think that's how we're doing these things, Excellent. Right? So producingoutloud@pyramind.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff, Chris, and Stoni. Once again, thank you. We'll see you on the flip side.
Bye,
all right?
Thanks, guys.
Later.
If you're a music producer, subscribe to our channel and stay up to date on the latest Pyramind tutorial videos, track breakdowns, elite sessions, and more. Visit us at pyramind.com.